All right, so let's talk about what we talked about last week. So somebody just kind of remind us, what are some of the things we talked about? Don't be shy. Does anybody remember anything we talked about last week?
Well, didn't you talk about the brothers coming?
Yeah, we talked about Joseph's brothers showing up in Egypt. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
In fact, Benjamin didn't come with them.
Yeah, that's right. Benjamin didn't go with them. Yeah. It was just them by themselves.
They didn't recognize Joseph.
They didn't recognize Joseph. That's right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, one of the themes that you pointed out was that he had to be reunited with his father and brothers for the lineage of Jesus to be fulfilled.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a lot of connections that we should be making to the gospel, to what's going to happen when Jesus comes on the scene. So absolutely, that's right. Ultimately, the reason that God saves Egypt, the reason that God makes Egypt wealthy, makes Pharaoh wealthy, that saves all the different peoples that come in is ultimately to bring about the Christ, the Messiah. And he's going to do that through Jacob's line. And so he is going to sustain them. And the way he does it is putting Joseph in this position. But ultimately, we want to see that the ultimate reason that God is doing a lot of these things is to bring about the Christ, the Messiah. All right. Anybody got anything else? All right. Let's read a little bit of text here. We'll backtrack just a little. Let's read starting in verses 9. Let's go verse 9 through 17. Somebody want to read 9 through 17?
I will, if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." But he said to them, "No, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, "It is as I spoke to you, saying, you are spies. In this manner you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be tested to see whether there is any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh surely you are spies." So he put them all together in prison for 3 days.
Okay, so what does Joseph do in this section? What's going on in this section?
Well, Joseph thought that they were spies.
Okay, he treats them like they might be spies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why does Joseph treat his brothers like they might be spies? Does Joseph know who they are?
Yes, he did.
So why does he treat them like they're spies?
He wants to test them.
Yeah. What's the purpose of the test? Why test them?
To see
He's
if
wanting
they're...
information too.
Okay. He wants information and he wants to test them. That's true.
I still think he wants his father and his brother there. I think he wants them all there.
Well, he definitely wants to know, and Mike brings this out. Mike said he wants information. So he wants to find out is his father still alive, and is his younger brother still alive? So he definitely wants some information. Definitely wants information. And he certainly wants to be reunited with them. That's true. So he's looking to find out some information, and he's also testing them, because otherwise he would just say, "Hey, it's me, Joseph. How's Dad doing? How's Benjamin doing?" Right? I mean, what is the purpose of the test?
Do you think if he had done that they would have believed him?
If he had said it's me, Joseph, that they would have believed him. I think he could have made it clear to them that it was him. I mean, he would know things that only he would know about them, like you threw me in a ditch. So, you know, there would be things like that only Joseph would kind of know. So I think he could have proved it to him. But he wants to test the character of his brothers, doesn't he? Is somebody trying to talk? I'm getting some jittery sounds. No? So Joseph he's testing the character of his brothers. What was the last thing he remembers about his brothers?
They sold him.
Yeah, they sold him into slavery. They plotted his death, right? They were going to kill him. But then one brother said, well, let's not kill him. And then they talked about it and said, let's make some money off of him. So the last thing he knows about his brothers is that they're treacherous, that they're evildoers, that they're jealous, hateful, vicious men. Have they changed? Right? He wants to get information. Now, if he just comes out and says, hey, it's me, Joseph, but he doesn't know what kind of character they are. He doesn't know what kind of people they could lie to him. They could say, oh, yeah, everybody. And they could do all kinds of things, right? They have no problem lying in the past. So, and they had no problem trying to plot his death. So Joseph, in his mind, is coming up with a way that he can find out, is my father still alive and is my brother still alive? And he wants to be reunited. But he's also trying to test them. He wants to see what kind of people they are. And also it's not just to get the information and to test their character, but to see how are they going to treat one another. And we'll see that as it kind of continues to unfold. He wants to see overall what's their character like. Now, what do the brothers think as this is all going on? What are they thinking?
Well, they don't know that it's him, and they're scared of what's fixing to happen.
That's right. They're afraid. Yeah, they could be locked up. They could be killed. Yeah, they don't know what's going on here. And this guy is treating them harsh. Let's look at. Let's read some more here. Let's read 18 through to.
Wait a minute, what chapter we in?
We are in chapter 42. 42. So let's read 18 through 38. We'll get a good chunk of it, and then we'll talk some more about it. So, does anybody want to read 18 to 38?
I'll read it.
Okay, go for it.
Do this, and you will live. For I fear God, if you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine to your households, and bring your youngest brother to me. So your word will be verified, and you shall not die. And they did so. Then they said to another, in truth, you are guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the distress of his soul. They begged us and did not listen. This is why this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, Did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? But you did not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood. They did not know that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter between them. Then he turned away from them and wept. And he returned to them and spoke to them. And he took Simon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain and to replace every man's money in his sack and to give them provisions for the journey. This was done for them.
Okay, you know what? Stop right there, Mike. That's good. Let's talk about this. So they're put in prison for 3 days, and originally Joseph had said, send one of your brothers back, and everybody else stay here. Now he changes it a bit. How's he change it? What's he do here? What's he want them to do? Yeah, that's right. So I'll keep one, and you can send the rest home. So he changes it up a little bit. And what do the brothers say about why they're going through what they're going through at this point?
We're paying for our actions.
We're paying for our actions, right? You reap what you sow. You harvest what you plant. What goes around comes around, right? That's kind of the concept they're thinking in their minds. Verse 22, what does Reuben say?
There comes a reckoning for this blood.
Didn't I tell you not to sin against the child?
That's right. That's right. Did I not tell you not to sin against the child? So what does Joseph know about Reuben?
Isn't he the oldest?
Well, he's the oldest. But what is now the brothers don't know that Joseph can understand them, right?
Right.
He's talking through an interpreter. So the brothers don't know that Joseph can hear them or understand them. And so they're talking fairly freely. And Reuben says, didn't I tell you not to do anything to him? Didn't I tell you to leave the boy alone, right? So what does Joseph know about Reuben?
First of all, that he didn't spearhead the thing. And secondly, that maybe he has some regrets.
Yeah, Reuben had nothing to do with it, the big plan, the big plot. So Joseph gets a clue here, he gets some insight. And so why does Joseph then take Simeon? Because he takes and binds Simeon.
As insurance?
Okay, as insurance. He was going to take somebody anyways. How come he didn't take Reuben?
Probably because he understood their conversation.
Yeah, because he understands that Reuben had nothing to do with it. He may very well be thinking Reuben might be a steady head, somebody who's gonna, maybe he's the better of the bunch, something like that. But he definitely knows that Reuben had nothing to do with his being thrown into slavery, and in fact wanted to keep the other brothers from doing it. So he takes Simeon. Simeon is the second born, right? So you got Reuben, and then you've got Simeon. So he takes Simeon as the second born, and he throws him, he binds him up, throws him in prison. Now,
was he the one that said that led him in the idea of getting rid of him? I don't recall. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was Simeon is specifically pointed out. They all wanted to get rid of him. They all wanted to get rid of him, other than Reuben. Reuben doesn't want him to be hurt. but they all want to get rid of him. I forget, Simeon might have been the one who said, let's sell him. I don't know. I think maybe Judah. I'd have to go back and look. I'm not really sure, but they were all in it together, that's for sure. But he doesn't take Reuben, the firstborn. I think he would have. I think he would have if he didn't hear this conversation. It's after this conversation he recognizes Reuben had nothing to do with it. Let me go with the next one down the list, right? The next in command. So I'll take Simeon. So he binds up Simeon. And what does Joseph then do with the rest of the brothers? What happens next?
He tells them to go home and gives them the grain that they've asked for and has them put the money back in the sack.
All right. So why does he put the money back in the sacks?
I think could very well be another test.
Okay.
And he has the authority to do it, and he doesn't want to make them any more of a hardship than they already have, because they are his brothers.
Yeah, okay. There's probably a couple things going on, right? He wants them, he's going to load them up with the grain and all that. He's trying to take care of his family, right? And he definitely wants to take care of them so that they return back to his father and his younger brother, Benjamin, right? So he's gonna provide them with what they need to make sure that they get home. And of course, he's going to give them the money. And the money is probably another layer as well. Again, I think he's providing for his family, sending back home the money. He's not going to take the money from his family, from his father. But I think there's also that aspect of the test that's going on there as well. He's testing again. Joseph is going to put out a number of tests to see the character of these guys, to see what kind of men they are. Have they changed? Or are they still the same? So I think there's a number of reasons why he does that. Let's move on here. Let's read 26. Let's read 26 through 38. I'll read it this time. 26 says, then they loaded up their donkeys. All right, so the brothers, they load everything up. They loaded up their donkeys with the grain and departed. And as one of them opened up his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money in the mouth of his sack. He said to his brothers, my money has been put back. Here it is in the mouth of my sack. At this, their hearts failed them, and they turned, trembling to one another, saying, what is this that God has done to us? When they came to Jacob, their father, in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, a man, the Lord of the land, spoke roughly to us and took us to be spies of the land. But we said to him, we are honest men. We have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, and take grain for the famine of your household, and go your way. Bring your youngest brother to me. Then I shall know that you are not spies, but honest men. And I will deliver your brother to you, and you shall trade in the land. As they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And was then, and when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob, their father, said to them, you have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more. And now you would take Benjamin? All this has come against me. Then Reuben said to his father, kill my 2 sons, if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you. But he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol. Okay. So what happens as they begin their journey, as they start to head out?
Well, they found that their money was all in their sack.
Yeah, they find one of the brothers, right? One of the brothers finds out, right? In verse 27, as one of them opened up his sack to give his donkey fodder. At the lodging place, he saw his money in the mouth of his sack. So they're heading back home. They get far enough that they're going to stop for the night or whatever, and they're going to feed their donkeys. And one of the brothers notices that his money is back there. So when he tells that to the other brothers, what do they start to think and say?
They're very concerned. Yeah.
Yeah, they're absolutely. They're very concerned, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else? Their hearts failed them.
Yeah.
They trembled.
Concerned.
What else?
Well, the question they put there is, what is this that God has done unto us?
Oh, yeah.
Sir, way my translation.
My drawing pad did craziness. Yeah, right. Yeah, what has God done to us? Was God the one who put the money in their sacks?
No.
No.
Was God the one who had the Egyptian ruler there speak harshly to them? Put Simeon in prison?
Joseph spoke harshly too.
No, it was Joseph, right?
Right.
It was Joseph who had done all this. This is an important thing to keep in mind when we're reading the scripture. There's going to be some times when you read the scriptures and people will say things like, God is doing this to me. Now, does God actively bring about harm, disaster, calamity on people?
No.
Never?
Well, what I was thinking here, James, was that this scripture here reminds me of the scripture in the Old Testament, be sure your sins will find you out. Natural consequence. I don't mean that God doesn't, but that irrespective of that it's like they're saying, we've been found out. You know, God, it's been watching us all along.
Yeah.
I would think of Sodom and Gomorrah as God bringing something against people.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, go ahead.
The plagues in Egypt.
The plagues in Egypt, yeah.
What he brought down on Job.
Well, God didn't bring that down upon Job. He allowed Satan. So there's a little different. God wasn't actively the one doing it. He allowed Satan to go and do whatever he wanted up to a point. So that's not God actively doing something. There is a difference there. He's allowing things to happen. And of course, ultimately everything's under his control. So when we talk about God allowing something, he could stop it, but he allows things to happen. But we're talking about him actively doing something. And some of the passages that are brought up, the plagues in Egypt, Sodom and Gomorrah, definitely there are times, and this is important, there are times when God is the one who is actively doing something. He's the one who's actively bringing about disaster, calamity. Bad things are happening because God is actually doing something to a person or to a nation or something like that. But there are also times when God is not actively involved, and yet people will say, God is doing this to me. Here is where you have a great example of that. God is not the one who put the gold in their sacks. As far as we know, God never told Joseph to do this. This is all Joseph, God is using this and he's going to work through it all, but God is not actively causing harm or problems for these brothers, or putting their gold in their sacks and all of that kind of stuff. God's not actively doing it. When the book of Ruth, in the book of Ruth, was it Naomi? She says, God is the one who's doing all kinds of harmful things to me. My husband is dead. There's a famine. I've had to move. My sons are dead. God is the one who's done all of this to me. I don't believe that's the case. I don't think God is actively trying to hurt her and, kill people and all of that. And what I think is going on is she feels like God is against her. So there are some times in the Bible, and that's what these brothers feel. They feel like God is against them, and they're saying that. Sometimes God is actively doing things, but at other times, he's not. And so unless the scriptures tell us directly, or there's something there that makes it clear that God is the one who's actively involved, we need to be careful and back up and think this may very well just be somebody thinking that God is doing this to them. Now, do people ever feel that way today?
Yes.
Yeah, people feel like God is actively trying to do things to them, right? Hurt them or bring about some kind of punishment in their life or something. Now, does God sometimes do that kind of stuff today? Is God actively involved in people's lives, maybe disciplining, if we could use that term? Or is God not active at all?
He's perfectly capable.
He's certainly perfectly capable of it. And in fact, I believe it's in Hebrews, doesn't it say that he disciplines his children? It may not be Hebrews, but in the New Testament, it talks about God disciplining his children. If he doesn't discipline you, you're not a child. So that clearly tells us that God is active in our lives today at times. But are there times when God is not actively bringing about, calamity in our lives, but we feel like he is?
Well, a lot of times we do it to ourselves. I was talking to a lady one day whose son.
Hey, Luther, you're really breaking up, brother. We can't hear you at all. You're really, really breaking up.
And you just couldn't understand why God was doing it to her. And well, the fact that he's a day smoker didn't help anything. But you don't say that to somebody that's I'm going to listen for the rest of the evening, okay?
Okay, that was amazingly crazy. The computer slowed you down for a long time. It was hard to understand. And then at the end, it caught up and you were like talking like Mickey Mouse or something. But I got the gist of what you're saying. I think it was about a woman who smoked and maybe she had some health problems or something. So yeah, we do things to ourselves and then we blame God. So we've got to keep a balance. There are times when God is active, even in our lives today, just like he was in the lives of people in the scriptures. But then there are times when, just like people in the Bible, either we do things to ourselves or just life happens and God isn't the one actively trying to, burn your house down or, make you lose a job or something like that, right? I mean, there are things that happen in life. They just happen. And God allows it, but he's not actively involved. And so we've got to be careful about blaming God for something or saying that God is doing something if we're not sure. And today, we're not sure. I'll give you an example. The scriptures talk a lot about God bringing about plagues and things like that, and diseases and famines on the nations, that God is doing that whenever it happens. And it kind of uses universal terms. But we also know that these kind of things just happen. Well, you know, we've got a pandemic. Did God do it? Maybe. That's a real possibility, but it's also a real possibility that we live in a broken world that's full of sickness and disease and sorrows, and things like this happen. Not out of God's control. Certainly, God could have done this, this pandemic and all the things that are happening, but I'm just a little bit more cautious if I don't know for sure. And I don't have the confidence to say that I know with divine certainty that God is doing whatever he's doing actively today. So anyways, we took a little bit of time on that, but I think it's important, especially when we read the scriptures. You've got to look at the context. There are some times when people just feel like God is attacking them or God is doing something to them, but he's not. He's not the active one involved. So anyways, that's important to think about that.
We find that a lot in Lamentations in some of the Psalms, you know, where the writer knows God's not, but they're like Jeremiah and David, but they're lamenting the situation, you know, because we can't tell one time when God's doing it, and we can't tell whether we're being disciplined, or we can't, you know, we don't know. We just have to go by faith, you know.
Right. And I think, you know, for us today, there's going to be times when we feel like God is against us, right? Just the world is coming down on us or whatever, and we might be tempted to think God is doing this to me. But if we examine our life, and there's no overt sin, we're not, I'm not saying that we've lived, the last 2 years sinlessly perfect or whatever, but you know what I mean. We look at our lives and we examine it. We say, it's not like we're in rebellion to God or anything like that. Then it's probably not God bringing about calamity in our life. It's just life happens, and we need to stick with God. We need to hold on to his hand as he walks through these valleys and these difficult times with us. So it's very important that we keep that kind of balance going on, both in our lives and when we're looking at the scriptures. All right, so in verses 29 through 34, we have the sons of Jacob. They get back to their father. They finally make it back, and they kind of retell the story, right? They tell him everything that's happened. They say, well, we went down, and we met the guy who's in charge, and he spoke harshly to us. And he was asking us all these questions, and well, come to find out, he wants us to bring back our brother Benjamin. And what does Jacob say when he sees that the money has been all back in their sacks, and he hears this story, and especially about the son? What's going through his mind? What's going on there?
Lost another son.
I lost another son, right?
And they're wanting to take another one.
Right. Are these sons trustworthy? Have they proven themselves to be trustworthy over the years?
It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, Jacob's probably not too, that's what he says, right? He says, you made me a broken and mournful man. You guys are doing this to me. What? And he says, why did you guys tell this guy that there's another brother? Why did you do that? Why do you let him into our life and all of this kind of stuff? And Jacob feels like, and he knows, listen, Joseph's dead. Now Simeon's dead, pretty much, right? Good is dead. And you want to take another son? You're nuts. You're nuts. There's no way. No way that's going to happen. So how does this chapter end? for Jacob? How's the chapter end?
Now you would take Jacob from me? No. He doesn't want Jacob to be taken from him.
Well, he doesn't want Benjamin. Yeah.
Oh, Benjamin.
Joseph's no more. Simeon's no more. Now you take Benjamin. Is Jacob's life blue skies and rainbows at the end of this chapter?
No, he's in deep despair.
Yeah, this is suffering, right? This chapter ends on a bad note. Jacob had sent his boys down to Egypt because there's a famine. Things are bad. They come back. They come back with food, all right. And they come back with all their money. What might Jacob be thinking? They came back with the money.
So maybe the food was stolen.
Ah, yeah. Is that within the realm of possibility with these boys? What did two of these boys do to a whole city? They slaughtered them, you remember? What kind of man is Reuben? What did Reuben do to his father? Anybody remember?
Slept with his extra wife.
That's right. That's right. And they lost Joseph, right? Joseph is dead. Joseph was out looking for the brothers. They can't be trusted there. Now Simeon's gone. Maybe Simeon got captured. Maybe that's why Simeon isn't back here. They've got all their money. Maybe we don't really know what's going through his mind, but you could imagine, right? If you were in Jacob's shoes, you could imagine. These guys are ruthless. They're liars. At least that's been their pattern, right? There's been a lot of this pattern, this history. And so Jacob could be thinking, maybe these guys stole this stuff. So anyways, it ends and it's bad. It looks bad. But does Jacob see the full picture? Does he know the big picture?
No.
No. In the big picture, is this bad? Is life bad for Jacob and his family? Big picture.
No.
No, it's good, right? He just doesn't know the full story, right? Does it sometimes look bad in your life?
Yeah.
If you say no, then you need to counsel me. I want to know what the secret is. Right? Sometimes it looks bad, doesn't it? I mean, let's be honest, right? Sometimes life, it looks bad. It feels bad. Sometimes it feels like God is against us. Sometimes the world is caving in on us. But we don't see the big picture, do we? We don't see the whole thing working out. We don't understand. Have you ever, and maybe not, but have you ever thought, hindsight, you were going through something and then, you come out the other side and you think, wow, it wasn't as bad as I thought. In fact, there were some blessings. There was things that came my way, or has that ever happened for you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe if we think through some of the experiences we've gone through, that God has brought us through something, and maybe the hardship that we were going through actually turns out to be, wow, we didn't see the big picture, but it was good that we went through that. It was good that it just looked really bad and we couldn't see the big picture. Now, ultimately, the reality is that everything works out for our good. We actually do know the big picture. We don't know all the little details, but the big picture, in the grand scheme of all things, God's in control, and those who are in Christ are blessed. To live is Christ, to die is gain. whatever happens, we understand that the ultimate end of our story, we could say, is good. It's a blessing. We're going to be with God in eternity, and there's going to be, right, no tears in heaven, all that kind of stuff, right? So we do know the end. We just don't know all the bits and the little details. But here you go ahead. No? Okay. Here we can see somebody, and maybe you can feel some kind of a sympathy with Jacob. He doesn't know the big picture. He feels like everything's a disaster at this point. Things are going downhill, worse and worse and worse. But they're not. All right, let's take a look. Does anybody have any thoughts on that before we move on to the next chapter? I don't want to jump ahead. Okay, let's read chapter 43, and we will read verses 1 through 10 to get us going. Somebody else want to read? 1 through 10, chapter 43.
I'll read it.
Okay, go for it.
Now the famine was and when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little food." But Judah said to him, "The man solemnly warned us, saying, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, he will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, he will not go down. For the man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.' Israel said, 'Why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you had another brother?' They replied, 'The man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kindred, saying, is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?' What we told him was an answer. Could we in any way know that he would say, 'Bring your brother down'?" And Judah said to Israel his father, "Send the boy with me, that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little one. I will be a pledge of his safety. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. If we had not delayed, we would now have returned twice."
Okay, thank you. All right, so what's going on in this section? What do we see here?
Well, they're out of food again.
Yeah, was that inevitable?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Jacob thought, maybe the boys thought, well, this food will get us through and the famine will be over and we can, hey, Simeon's lost, whatever, kind of move on. But they run out of food, right? The famine is still severe. They eat all the food that they had, and so the food runs out. It's kind of inevitable if the famine, doesn't go away. So absolutely, they run out of food. Famine is still bad. What else goes on?
Well, they were dilly-dallying. I mean, the brother thought we could have been back twice by now.
That's right. Yeah, which makes me think that they were trying to see if they could wait and not have to go back to Egypt.
Yeah.
At least Jacob, right? Maybe the brothers too, doesn't say, but nobody's running to go back down to Egypt right away. So it may be that Jacob is thinking, well, I'm not taking a chance, and hopefully this food will just last us and the famine will go away, and we won't ever have to go back down to Egypt. We won't ever have to face something difficult, right? You ever not want to face something difficult, a challenge or something?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Here you've got a friend, right? I think Jacob I don't think he wants to face this reality. I don't think he wants to do the tough thing, but he's going to be brought to do the tough thing. So Jacob tells his sons, though, right? He says, go back down to Egypt and buy more food. What do they say?
No.
What does Judah say? Because Judah speaks up.
Without Benjamin.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere without Benjamin. The guy who talked harshly to us, who's in control, he said if we come back, we better not come back without our youngest brother. And so he pleads with his father. He talks to his father, kind of reasons with him. What does Judah say, though, to Jacob? So he says, we could have gone twice. He says all that, but what does he say in verse 8 and 9?
He says, I'll be responsible.
He says, I'll be responsible. Yeah. Let me bear the responsibility. Now, who said that they would bear the responsibility in the last chapter? You remember?
Reuben.
Reuben said, kill my kids if I don't bring them back, right? This is not Reuben. This is Judah. It may be that Jacob doesn't trust Reuben because of what he had done before. But let's ask this question. What has Judah gone through that might have changed his character just a little bit? Anybody remember what Judah went through?
Wasn't he in that interlude with with his daughter-in-law that hadn't been fulfilled by her the other brother, or?
Yes, that's right. You remember it almost seemed like a break because you start reading through the text, and we're in the life of Joseph, and then we have a whole chapter devoted to Judah and Tamar. Remember, Tamar is Judah's daughter-in-law. And at the end of that story, you remember that Judah confesses that Tamar was more righteous than he was. It appears that Judah probably had learned a lesson going through all of that. And it's going to make sense that we saw that interlude for a number of reasons. But here, Judah, it probably affected his whole life. And so Judah has a change in his character. He's growing, he's maturing. Lessons in life have brought him to a different place. And I think that's true with all of the brothers. I think we'll see that as we go through, but here specifically with Judah. Now, what do we call it when one person will take the place of another? Anybody know what we call that? If a teacher is out sick and they call in somebody to take their place, what do they call that teacher?
A substitute.
A substitute, right? You got a substitute teacher. So here, Judah is saying that he will be the substitute for Benjamin, right? Judah is going to take the place of Benjamin. Put him in my charge. I'll make sure things are safe. I'll take his place, kind of idea. So I'm going to be there for him. I'll be responsible for him. That kind of concept is going on there. And so Jacob finally says, okay, right, we're gonna move on here. Verses 11 through 14. Then their father Israel said to them, well, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags and carry a present down to the man. A little balm and a little honey, gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Perhaps you forgot to pay for it. Perhaps it was someone's oversight. Take also your brother and arise and go to them. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man. May he send back your other brother and Benjamin. And as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I'm bereaved. All right, so what happens here? Jacob says, yeah, you can go, but what's he want to do?
Well, he's trying to, I don't know, maybe get in good with them, bribe a little.
Yeah. Again, Jacob doesn't know the full picture. He doesn't know what happened with these boys. He just knows what the boys told him. So he's going to send them, but he wants to send them with some goodies, right? He wants to send them with some gifts. You remember that when Jacob was coming back to visit his brother Esau, what did he do? See, this is very Jacob-y. This is like a Jacob thing. What did Jacob do?
He brought gifts.
Yeah.
Jacob.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He lined up a bunch of gifts. He wanted to show his brother Esau. He wanted to kind of placate him. He wanted to give him a bunch of gifts so that maybe his anger would be turned away. So Jacob's doing the same thing here. He wants to offer a bunch of gifts. Now there's a famine in the land. They don't have a lot, but he wants them to take twice the money just in case they accidentally, maybe they forgot to pay for it, or maybe the guy, didn't take the money, whatever. Somewhere along the lines, something happened. Bring twice the money, right? Bring that and bring all these little gifts. And hopefully what'll happen is they'll be pleased with all these gifts that this man who spoke harshly to you, he'll be pleased with all these gifts and you'll return safely. And then of course, who does he bring into the mix as well? Who is he kind of seeking? Verse 14.
God.
Yeah, he's bringing God into the midst of this. I don't know if he had, if he's really been in prayer. I don't really know if he's been seeking God. I don't know. We don't get a whole lot of discussion of it. But sometimes, and this may not be what's going on here, but it's interesting that it's interesting that, and again, this is kind of like Jacob's MO, right? Jacob tends to do all that he can do and then finally do what?
Go to God.
Yeah, I'm going to do as much as I can, and then, oh, by the way, let me throw up a Hail Mary. I can use that terminology, like I'm just going to toss this up there just in case, right? I'll do whatever I can do, and then finally I'll seek God and say, well, let's throw a prayer up to God too. He might be able to help in this situation, right? God might be able to help out, so we'll throw that up there as well. That may not be his intention here, but we do know that that's the way he's acted in the past. And sometimes we do that too, don't we? Sometimes situations, things are going on, and we decide we're going to take care of it. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to scheme. We're going to plot. We're going to plan. We're going to do all that. And there's nothing wrong with, godly plans. But you know the difference, right? And I know the difference. Sometimes we try to do everything that we can do, and then finally we think, well, maybe I should throw a prayer up to God. Where should God be in the midst of our planning?
At the top.
Yeah, it should be the first, right? That's the first one we go to. And then we ask him, bless our plans, help us to do the right thing or whatever. But, honestly, sometimes we forget. Sometimes we think we're going to go and do it by our own power, by our own strength, by our own might. And of course, when things get really bad, which they're really bad for Jacob, when things get really bad, then we think, well, maybe I should talk to God a little bit. Maybe he can get me out of this mess or something. So he does all that, and he basically says, listen, if my kids are gone, they're gone. If I'm going to be grieved, I'm going to be grieved, right? What happens is going to happen. let it be what it's going to be. All right. We are at the end of our time. I don't want to press forward anymore. We will pick up and we will look at 15 through 34 next week. I just want to mark that. Before we close in prayer, though, are there any questions? Are there any comments, thoughts about the text or anything we've talked about tonight?